Thank you for joining us for today's webinar, where we will be discussing how to find free money for college with scholarships. This webinar is being recorded. All participants have been muted, so please use the Q&A box for any questions. All attendees will receive a follow-up email with today's recording and presentation deck within a week. Your presenter today is Jeff Lackey. He is the Director of Relationship Management at Sallie Mae. And with that, I'd like to now hand it off to Jeff. Welcome, Jeff.
All right. Thank you, Lena, and welcome everyone. Thank you for attending today, taking a portion out of your mid-noon activities and such in order to learn a little bit more about scholarships, what they are, and where you can find them and how they work, the importance essentially of their award offer essentially in a financial aid offer, and how they can help fund education. We like to refer to them as gift aid, and you'll see here in a slide or two upcoming or so how important that is to try and find as many of the gift aid resources or free resources that you can. So let me go ahead and move forward here. What we're going to try and accomplish today is to have you learn a little bit more about what scholarships are, how they can help you pay for school. We'll focus a little bit of time on that. We want to make sure that we dedicate enough time to focusing on scholarship resources. We're going to talk a little bit about where many scholarships are appearing nowadays and the importance of something that's relatively new over the past few years, and that is scholarship search engines. So we're going to touch upon that for a little while. We're going to also then shift gears about halfway through and talk about the essay portion of a scholarship. And not every scholarship is going to have an essay, but those that do, the essay portion really does carry a lot of weight and merit with a scholarship review committee when they're reading applications. So we want to make sure that we touch upon some points that we hope and that what we've seen through various practices and such tend to allow for applicants to get more noticed, and typically review committees and such can sometimes make more favorable reviews when they see some of the topics that and the traits that we highlight in our essay writing. And then lastly, we will talk on kind of doing a rehab and review on tips on applying for scholarships and best ways to organize yourself to make sure that you fulfill all the various necessary requirements, the skills, the knowledge, the abilities and such that a scholarship is asking for you to respond to, and making sure, lastly, the importance of turning it in on time when there's deadlines and such. So let's go ahead and dive into this. We're going to talk a little bit about how scholarships can help you pay for school. Uh, we want to go ahead and maybe kind of take a step back first before we talk about the actual physical scholarships, and talk about how to approach financial aid, and if you've got time and you're trying to research all the various different financial aid options that are out there, trying to learn more about funding for college. One of the simplest ways to do that, what we've highlighted here to talk about today, is the 1-2-3 approach. One, we want to make sure that students and families are exploring and starting with money that they don't have to pay back first. So that's going to be your scholarships, and that's what the highlight of today's presentation is going to be. So this is going to be, what we would consider the first step in looking at developing a plan to help pay for school. Number two, or the second step, is to explore federal financial aid. And of course, in the state of California, the Cal Grants and such can be, you can make yourself eligible for the Cal Grants and such through various financial aid offices by filing the FAFSA. And so what we want to do is talk about how you explore your federal financial aid by completing the FAFSA. And the FAFSA is the free application for federal student aid. It is a federal document. It's a free federal document, as it states in its name, that you, and if you're a dependent, your family, an eligible parent or parents, would fill out in order to put yourself eligible or determine eligibility for federal financial aid options. And like I said, also Cal Grant options in the state of California. many other states, if you happen to be attending out of state, or if you happen to have citizenship in another state and don't necessarily qualify for Cal Grant, maybe you've just moved to California or so, and you may be looking at attending school other place or something like that. Many schools, or excuse me, many states' grant programs will also utilize a portion of the FAFSA information to determine your grant eligibility. Lastly, if you have taken advantage of all your free aid options with the money you don't have to pay back, scholarships, you've explored your free aid options and maybe your federal self-help options like federal direct student loans and work study by filing the FAFSA and seeing what you're eligible for. If you still have a gap after that between the money that you have in financial aid and the money you need in order to complete college and take care of your expenses, then that's the time to take a look at various different gap funding options, like private student loans through lenders, maybe even looking at Federal Parent Plus loans by chance, where the parent takes out the loan on behalf of the student, tuition payment plans, such like that. So, and then there's also other different types of investment options, depending upon when you get started, 529s, Coverdell education spending plans, UT or UGMA, UTMA accounts and such that you might be able to use there. So a little bit about the FAFSA. The FAFSA typically opens on or around October 1st of each year. But the FAFSA for the academic year 25-26, which is the upcoming FAFSA academic year, that is going to open in December. And the reason for that is 2 years ago, the Department of Education started doing a pretty massive overhaul on the FAFSA and taking the questions from roughly 104 questions down to about 36 or 38 questions or so. In with that, they have different federal methodologies and such. We're not going to talk necessarily about all the different changes, but just want to understand on what constituted such a massive overhaul. And with that, there were some delays for the academic year 24-25 year. You may have heard about them or read about them in the news. But for academic year 25-26, the Department of Education has stated that they're not changing the FAFSA for this year. It's going to essentially be a duplication. However, there are still some things that need to be tweaked and some things that aren't quite working quite right. So they wanted to make sure that when it does roll out, it rolls out correctly. And with that, they needed about a 2-month delay window. So instead of opening on October 1st, it's going to open on December 1st this year. And so what we want to do is make sure that you are aware of it and have you consider maybe filing the FAFSA. And again, when you look at the FAFSA, most of the required information comes from your tax return. And you can see here the bullet points right in the middle. If you are looking at attending school for, let's say, this January, then you would be filing the academic year 24-25 FAFSA. And the FAFSA is going to require your 2022 tax return information. Now, if you happen to be looking at filing the FAFSA for next academic year, maybe starting off in fall of 2025, then you would be using the academic year 25-26 FAFSA, and you'd need to have your 2023 tax return input in on that FAFSA. And there's ways to do it electronically, which we could would cover in another session. I believe that Provident Credit Union has a recording if you'd like to learn more about the FAFSA. And we can certainly show you that link later on in the presentation on where to listen to that. But essentially, we want to highlight the importance of filing the FAFSA. Understand, what the importance is of filing the FAFSA in regard to scholarships, which are basically your free aid options and such, because there could be some scholarships that are looking for information from the FAFSA for you to complete it. So even if you don't think that you're eligible for aid because you think that maybe your income's too high or, whatever the case may be, and you don't think that you need to file the FAFSA, you may still need it in order to complete free aid opportunity applications for scholarships. So let's go ahead and dive into the scholarship resources. Let's go ahead and start off with, just in case you don't happen to know what a scholarship is essentially the free money that does not have to be paid back. It is essentially free. So you apply for it, you receive the money through a donor or a foundation or so. upon winning it, and then that money is typically sent to the school, of which that it can be used to offset costs that you have to go to school. Typically, there are, there can be some requirements, but for the most part, one of the major requirements is that if for some reason something happens along, during your schooling where you have to take a leave of absence or something like that or whatnot, you don't typically have to have it be repaid. It is money that has been given or gifted to you. So from that standpoint, you don't have to pay it back like a loan. And scholarships can be used to cover, your entire cost of tuition, or it can be maybe a one-time award of a few $100s. Either way, it's worth applying for because it'll help reduce the cost of your education. If you're wondering when you should apply for scholarships, each scholarship has its own unique requirements that indicate who qualifies and how to apply. It also depends on the scholarship deadline dates. Some deadlines are as early as a year before college starts. So if you're in high school right now, you should be researching and applying for scholarships, maybe starting in the late spring or during the summer between your junior and senior years. Or if you happen to be a senior right now, you could be looking at scholarships and potentially applying for them for academic year 25-26 right now. If you think that you've missed that window, don't give up. When you look at scholarship information, you will see, and we'll demonstrate where you can find certain scholarships and where you might be able to view them based on deadline dates. You can always research and review when scholarships are going to be open, when the time is to apply, and when you would be receiving that money. So essentially, we'll talk about that in some upcoming slides, but it's really a great option to do it. And you may be saying to yourself, well, how do I apply? Each scholarship is going to have its own requirements, whether it's coming from a college, whether it's coming from an institution, a donor, or a company, or whatever the case may be. Each scholarship will have its own requirements. The scholarship's website should give you an idea of who qualifies for the scholarship and how to apply. So again, like we mentioned on the previous slide, it's going to take some dedication to make sure that you read the application carefully, fill it out completely, make sure that you meet the application deadline dates. This is not going to be something that you just file once. For every scholarship out there, you will be doing this for every scholarship you decide to apply for. So, kind of touching upon a statement I made in the previous slides, that, hey, I'm kind of hoping to learn a little bit more about scholarships, but I don't consider myself scholarship worthy. That is really a misnomer nowadays. No longer are the days scholarships just for captains of sports teams or A+ students or whatnot, something like that. There is a myriad of different scholarships out there, and they can be offered based on academic achievement, even financial need, which again kind of goes back to the FAFSA, where you may need some way to demonstrate your financial need, of which the FAFSA might be one of the best ways to do that. You may get scholarships based on your community involvement or organizational membership. You happen to apply and be a member of an organization or so that offers scholarships. You may have an inside track on making yourself eligible to apply to win that scholarship. Of course, you can always still get scholarships nowadays, still based on sports or a talent or skill, leadership or school activities as well. But now you can also find in certain areas of the United States, and California still has this, you can get your scholarships, you can have scholarships that you may potentially win based on ethnicity. And so I know that there's been some recent Supreme Court decisions and such that have tried to modify the rules or maybe uh, kind of tell what the rules ought to be from an equality standpoint. But there is still some leeway within the scholarship world on how some of those scholarships can be offered based on ethnicity. So certainly still research that, keep it as an opportunity, and take a look at it and see what's available for you. You can also receive scholarships too for religious affiliations and such still. And then, of course, lastly, your parent affiliation with work or a club or an activity. You may not necessarily be a part of an organization or maybe be employed at a company that offers a scholarship. But if you are a dependent, your parents, where they work or the organization or club or an activity that they participate with, they may have scholarships available for you as well. And you can see some of the ones that these are vested scholarships, vetted scholarships that we know that are available there. There's scholarships for bowling. There's scholarships for something as off the wall as a duct tape prom outfit scholarship. There's scholarships out there for a candy technologist. So, there's some things out there that hopefully the idea and the premise is that there should be a scholarship out there for everyone. You just simply have to find it and put yourself in the best position to make yourself eligible to win. So where do we find some of these scholarships? Well, a lot of the resources for scholarships come from these various different bullet points. And again, we talked a little bit about them on the previous slide, but you definitely want to be looking at local or community-based scholarships, not only from if you happen to be attending in a city or a region that has a college or university, but also your hometown. So let's say that you moved away in order to attend college. Look in both communities. Look in the community that the college or university is located in, as well as look at the community that you came from for scholarships now as well as in the future. Some of these local or community-based scholarships, I'll go ahead and jump down to the sixth bullet point down. A lot of local or community-based scholarships that are offered by businesses or maybe organizations. Sometimes they may not necessarily know where to advertise these. So they're going to look for public places to advertise scholarships. And that sixth bullet point down there, libraries, is an excellent place to try and find local or community-based scholarships. And the reason for that is it's a public place. The local or community-based scholarship donors can go to high schools, and they may be able to go to other places if they're fortunate enough to have a college or university in their town. They can certainly advertise there. But if none of that happens to be something that they can do, what they typically will do is look for public places. And libraries are an excellent source to have local or community-based scholarships advertised. We did talk a little bit about federal and state agencies offering scholarships. Again, if it's federal, most likely you're going to need the FAFSA in order to either qualify in part or fully for that particular scholarship, as well as state agencies will also offer various different scholarships as well. The bulk of scholarships will come from the next bullet point here, and those are going to be the college-specific scholarships that are offered by colleges that you happen to be attending. Not only when you are talking with your admissions director will you have the opportunity to maybe qualify for and win a particular scholarship, but if you happen to be attending a university, maybe after you get done with your general university requirements, and you declare what your major is going to be, you may find that you have a second opportunity for scholarships with that particular major. So as a first-year freshman student, you've got the admission-centric scholarships that you qualify for. And let's say that you want to be a teacher, so you declare your major as education. You may go to the education department on the local campus, and they may have a host of scholarships that are available now that you've declared. So definitely keep that in mind and keep those two entities on campus open for exploring free aid options. Religious organizations obviously do have the potential of having scholarships, not only at the local parish, temple, or house of worship, but also in their regional organizations and such. So certainly inquire if you're fortunate enough to have an office manager at your house of worship. Certainly inquire with them to find out if there's a scholarship offered based on the local or if there's a regional scholarship that's offered. We talked about employers, not only you as the student, but if you're a dependent student, maybe looking at your parents' place of employment. We talked about libraries and, of course, private organizations and major companies. This is probably going to be the second largest source of scholarships that are available out there behind college-specific scholarships. There is a host or a myriad of millions of scholarships that are offered nationwide by private organizations and major companies now. And we'll talk a little bit about, based on this next bullet point here, online search engines. Where do I find these private organization and major company scholarships? Most likely they're going to advertise on their own through their various company websites, or they may have their information popularized on a search engine. And a search engine, you may be asking yourself what that is. A search engine is basically just that. It is a place that will aggregate scholarship offerings. And basically what you do is you will be able to look at them. Maybe you can submit some information and get the scholarships based to your personal profile sent to you so that you can actually view them, read through them, and decide which ones you want to apply for. So, because this is kind of a unique topic and it's really gained steam over the past few years or so, we want to make sure that we touch upon scholarships engines just a little bit more. So what a scholarship search engine is like I said, they house an aggregate list of scholarships and allow users to be matched to scholarships based on your personal information that you use in your search. So when you're building a profile or when you're going through a filter service and trying to filter out the scholarships that best pertain to you, the key is to keep your profile up to date if it allows for you to store your data in a profile. So keep your test scores, your GPA, clubs, organizations, community service, your volunteer activities, keep all of that up to date. And as things change and such, or maybe you happen to become involved in another volunteer activity, make sure that that gets inputted into your database profile. And remember too, this is not scholarship search engines and scholarships in general can be applied for all the times that you are attending school in higher education. So your first year, second year, third year, fourth year of undergraduate, graduate schooling, doctorate schooling, or doctorate or professional schooling. So MD, DO, law, business, all of that. Scholarships ought to be available your entire higher education career pathway. So again, they're not just for your junior or senior year in high school. So again, as you mature, make sure that you update your GPA, update your activities. You may want to throw in your major now that you may have declared, or if you happen to change your major, maybe you were education and now you're looking at allied health. You want to do something in the healthcare industry instead. Make sure you go into your profile and your scholarship database on a search engine and update all of that information. Lastly, when you're looking at scholarship search engines, and you happen to be researching some online, if you come across those that may ask for some money in order for you to participate, you might want to steer clear. There are thousands of scholarship search engines that are available out there, but the vast majority of the ones that are vetting scholarships to make sure that they are tried and true, they are offering these selections for free. So you should not have to put down any money in order to apply for a scholarship or use a scholarship search engine. If you come across that, you might want to keep on searching. So again, touching point here, when you're looking for scholarship search engines to help you narrow your search and guide down to the, most perfect scholarships that are based on your profile, again, I want to reiterate it. The tools should be free. You should never have to pay for applications or pay for someone to help you find the scholarships. Validating scholarships. This is a big deal. Validating scholarships ensures that your current and up-to-date opportunities are legitimate. So basically, you don't want to find, and go out there and look at a scholarship only to find out that it was just a marketing ploy and that it wasn't really a true scholarship. So in the search engines that you find, there should be some sort of disclosure, or there may be a way to report prior users' experience. You should be able to find that and make sure that the scholarship search engine is true. And they'll typically have some sort of a statement out there validating, knowing that the scholarships are from true entities, foundations, companies, what have you, and that these scholarships truly are awarded. So that's great to make sure that when you find a scholarship search engine that you're interested in, that they have some sort of statement on how they validated that. If they offer a calendar, it'd be really great to help kind of keep you organized, make sure you knew when deadline dates were coming up, when you need to get your application or timeline in place. That's really great. Filtering up capabilities, that's another great one. If you land on a scholarship search engine and it's got thousands of scholarships, it's going to take forever to read all of them. If there was a way that you could filter or maybe create a profile that made the scholarships appear that you are most likely to be eligible for. So either based on the traits that you filtered by or based by your school, you're in school, or maybe based on your ethnicity or so, or based in the state that you're from, that might be a way to put scholarships in front of you that best match your profile or best match your filter so that you're not wasting too much time on scholarships that you have trouble meeting the requirements. Again, rating of scholarships, very similar to the validation of scholarships. Some scholarship search engines will have some sort of a Yelp, for instance, or a rating system, basically talking about from prior experiences from prior student applicants. How did the scholarship application work? Did the money get sent to the school on time? Were the directions clear and understandable? That's great. You know, maybe your scholarship search engine won't have that, but if it does, it may lend to some more credibility and make you feel more at ease in when you're going to take time in order to fill out a scholarship. That might be one of the ways you decide which scholarships you fill out first. And then lastly, adjustable settings. You may want to look at those that have ways that once you create your profile, to allow for you to delete or maybe enhance it at later time so that it can get you a second batch of scholarships. Maybe that, your first scholarship profile that you built gets the scholarships that best match you. But maybe you want to take a look at those that maybe don't match you specifically, but you would still like to see what their opportunities are. So again, having adjustable settings or being able to change the filters is a great way to look for a scholarship search engine you want to decide to use in the future. So those are where some of the places that scholarships are housed. What we want to talk about is, okay, now that you've found your scholarships, you've gone to the community, you've gone to your house of worship, you've talked with the college or university, and maybe you've used a scholarship search engine, you found a few scholarships out there that you want to apply for, but they're going to require some sort of a writing assignment, whether a full-fledged essay or maybe just a few sentences, and they want you to be able to explain something. It is more common than ever to try and find or to find that you're going to run into scholarships that are requiring essays. So when you write an essay, you're going to want to write one that best shows how you are the best fit for that money. And this isn't going to be your typical school essay. This is a chance for you to show who you are beyond your grades and test scores. So when you're looking at scholarships, you want to make sure that you leave yourself plenty of time to produce a well thought out entry. Take the time to brainstorm your ideas, create an outline, edit your entry as if you would for any essay writing assignment, let's say like in an English class or so. Think before you write, brainstorm to generate some good ideas, and then create an outline to help keep you going. Each scholarship provider is going to look for students who meet certain criteria, so consider writing about an experience or an interest that highlights your strong ties to the offered scholarships organization's mission. Putting genuine passion and enthusiasm for your topic will show through in your essay writing. And make sure that you follow all of the necessary steps and review them before you submit your scholarship essay. We've seen, some of the brightest students have missed out on a chance to earn free scholarship dollars all because they neglected to follow instructions. You don't want to fall into that category. Scholarship committees would rather see how you overcame hardships and succeeded despite the obstacles in your path. Or maybe even, you may even say, how or what did you learn from the times that you failed? That can be very valuable in a scholarship review committee's minds when they're looking at the next steps on who moves forward to potentially win a scholarship. So when you do, and you do have the ability to write something about yourself, share something about you, that would demonstrate who you are. This is a chance for you to elaborate elsewhere on your application, that you wouldn't have the opportunity to do so. So maybe let's say if you look at an application and there's these certain questions that you either have to answer with just, a couple of words or a sentence or so. Is the scholarship review committee really going to get a sense of who you are if just by one sentence? Chances are no. So if you move to the essay, and it does have the ability for you to explain something about yourself, share something about you, who you are, and this is like I said, this is your chance to elaborate on your application that you wouldn't necessarily have the opportunity elsewhere. So, telling your story, it makes your essay seem more genuine, and hopefully more memorable to the scholarship review committee. Also, too, when filling out scholarship applications, you may come across an application that is asking for recommendations or some sort of a referral, essentially. So you may want to think about who in your life you may want to ask, write a referral or a letter of recommendation, recommending you. So from that standpoint, obviously to your mind, you may say, well, I would like to ask my mother, my father, my guardian, somebody that takes watch over me. That's all well and good. And we're not stating that that's not invaluable. It is. However, to a scholarship review committee, they may interpret that as saying, well, this is a relative, this is a dependent, this is somebody that typically is used to up talking this person. What we would really value and what we would like to see is a letter of recommendation from somebody that is more nonpartisan, for instance. So maybe like a teacher or a counselor or an employer, for instance. Somebody that does not have an emotional tie to, or less of an emotional tie to you, so that they can get a true estimation or a true valuation as to who you are. So when you're writing or filling out applications and you see that there's a letter of recommendation, you may want to have these people identified in your life so that at a moment's notice, you can go and ask them for a letter of recommendation. In the meantime, these people can also help you out, giving you feedback on your essay. And again, these can be teachers, counselors, trustworthy friends. When it comes to getting feedback on your essay, you definitely want to run your essay past these folks. And again, it can be the people that wrote your letter of recommendation as well. But the idea and the premise is so that they understand what you're writing, and what you are trying to convey. In your mind, when you read your own writing, you may skip run-on sentences, you may skip punctuation errors, you may have undeveloped sentences that make sense to you because you wrote it, and in your mind, it's interpreting what you hope to convey. But to somebody that doesn't have that opportunity, they may be confused in your statement. So you definitely want to make sure that you have somebody proofread your essay, because scholarship communities do notice grammar mistakes. Little tiny errors that can distract a reader from the overall message. That really does score big. That scores powerful in determining who they're going to have move forward in the scholarship application process. If what you're trying to say or convey is kind of clouded and such, then they may potentially move on from you with other applicants. So moving forward, a good scholarship essay is going to be original and honest. Don't fake it. Scholarship review committees will probably read hundreds of applications, maybe even thousands of applications over a year. They've gotten really good at reading essays. And then they can sometimes gauge pretty decently when somebody is trying to bend the truth and or all out maybe have some sort of something written in their essay that's untrue. So you want to make sure that when you do your writing assignment, it's original and honest. You also want to make sure that your essay states clearly why you deserve to win the scholarship. This is a perfect time to talk a little bit about what your accolades are, maybe some of the awards that you've won, some of the things that you have been able to achieve, some of the trials and tribulations that you've overcome. In a sense, this is a time that is okay to be a bit prideful, not boastful, but prideful. Take resolution to the fact that you worked really hard and that you got some sort of an award, for instance, if you do have awards. It's okay to go ahead and talk or uptalk some of these accolades. And again, you can do that in a very respectful and prideful way without being boastful. Make sure that when you are writing an essay that you stick to what the requirements of the essay were, or if it is completely open, let's say they just say something along the lines of, please tell us a little bit about yourself, make sure that you don't cloud up your essay with unnecessary information. So if you're trying to develop a point about yourself, you don't need to cover everything about your life. You want to make sure that you develop that point, add a few supporting sentences, No, just a few to kind of help collaborate the point you're trying to convey, as well as show, more well-roundedness of yourself. But you don't need to cover every single life event that has happened to you, especially if it does not match with the intent of the scholarship, for instance. And then lastly, you want to make sure that your essay is inspirational and positive in tone. If for some reason maybe an essay says something along the lines of, please write about something that happened that was difficult in your life and how you overcame it, and you decide that you want to use an explanation, or you want to explain your most current job position. And let's say that you work at a local fast food establishment, and you happen to work the cash register and hand out food to individuals when they come up and place their order. It's something that you do not like at all. And you find that the people that you interact with seem to be rude, they seem to have short tempers, whatnot. You don't want to convey all of that into your essay, because that's going to give the scholarship reviewer a negative connotation, whether directly or indirectly about you, because you're describing a hostile environment. But what you may want to do is consider stating that you worked for a local fast food establishment. You worked the front counter, which allowed for you to interact with many patrons coming in. And although the job was difficult, and that sometimes customers were difficult to work with, one of the things that I learned is patience. What I learned is accuracy, and making sure that the order was put together correctly, making sure that I was very timely in getting the food served to them, because that helped them along in their day and it made their day better. You want to make sure that you talk about the inspirational or positivity that you've done. Or you may want to use the takeaway. I learned that maybe customer service is not the best role for me right now, but I still want to help people. So I am interested in your scholarship for, and then you would develop the reasons for. So again, try and stay inspirational and positive in tone when you're writing your essay, and try and avoid negativeness in your writing. So again, talking a little bit about the different types of scholarships that are out there, you can see here some scholarships are quirky, they could be a bit unusual. Scholarship search tools will allow for you to find some of these. And you can see that some of these scholarships may have writing essays, some of them may have no writing essays. But the one thing that they will have, and the reason why we've highlighted a couple of these right here, is that these scholarships are going to be looking for folks or individuals for their unique skills, their interests, or their creative entries. And you can see one of them is a sci-fi writing scholarship. So there is going to be a large percentage of writing that you would have in this. So again, when you're looking for your scholarships, this is not something that's always going to be on you. Or please tell us a little bit about yourself. They may want you to write about your pet. They may want you to write about your hobby. All of these different essays could have, or all of these different scholarships could have different essay writing requirements. So, in summary, ways of tips in order to apply for scholarships and put yourself in the best contention to win one. Again, to reiterate, leave yourself plenty of time to brainstorm your ideas, create outlines, edit your entry as if you would for any essay writing assignment. Brainstorm and generate some good ideas so that you can create an outline to kind of keep you going. Each scholarship provider is looking for students who meet certain criteria. So, again, you want to be authentic, and to see how ways that your authenticity matches with the various different questions that the scholarship is asking for. Make sure that you read through the scholarship completely. Know all of the requirements front to back before you start down. Last thing you want to do is start filling out a scholarship application, and the first 3 of 7 questions you have been able to fill out, and then realize the next 2 questions you don't meet at all. And then the last 2 questions after that, you barely meet. Now you've wasted a good, 20, 30, 40 minutes maybe or so filling out an application that you ended up determining doesn't pertain to you. So read through the entire application, know what all the requirements are. If you don't happen to meet one of the requirements, brainstorm and think on whether or not there is either a moment or an experience in your life that best matches what that requirement is looking for, even if it's not the exact thing that they're asking. It is okay to try and maybe say something along the lines of, even though I don't meet this requirement, I've had this experience in the past, which I think is very similar to your situation. That's one way to overcome a scholarship that maybe you don't happen to meet all the points on. So again, reading through it will allow for you to know how you need to approach it and to best address all the different questions that the scholarship is asking for. Include strong recommendations. We've talked about that on previous slides. It's great for mom and dad or a family member to write, but try and think of somebody that's more objective, like an employer, a teacher, a counselor, something along those lines, and make sure that you give them plenty of time, a minimum of 2 weeks to write the letter of recommendation. If you give them less than that, they may be a bit upset. They may be felt like they have to hurry through the letter of recommendation, and maybe they don't write a good recommendation that really expresses who you are from their perspective. So again, give them plenty of time in order to do that. And also too, create a lasting impression. When you get in your applications, if you do have the chance to elaborate, make sure that you put your accolades, that those points and such that you do have the ability to be a bit prideful on. Make sure that you front load those closer to the beginning of the essay within your writing style as best as possible, because it is the potential of having scholarship review committees kind of get a bit tired over time in reading essays, and they may drift off near the bottom half of your essay and maybe not retain all of the accolades that you were talking about. But if it's addressed within the, maybe first, second, or third paragraphs of a 4-paragraph entry or so, then there's a good chance that maybe by chance that scholarship review committee will remember more of your accolades. So again, create that lasting impression. Make sure that whatever you write about pops. It sticks in their head. So kind of think about that when you decide what you want to convey. Meet all of your deadlines. Again, every scholarship should have a deadline printed on their application. Make sure that you put it on a calendar, enter it into your phone calendar, whatever the case may be, and then work backwards from that on trying to figure out when you're going to complete the various different portions of the scholarship application. Some of them, again, may just have 1-sentence questions that they're at, 1-second sentence responses that you need to fill out. Some of them may have longer developed writing assignments. Some of them may have full-fledged essays. So again, you may have to dedicate an hour, maybe a little bit longer or so, to fill out these types of applications. So make sure that you work backwards from the timeline, from the deadline. Make sure that you give yourself plenty of time to have it submitted. If the scholarship, it needs to be mailed, make sure that you mail it a couple of days in advance so that it's received by the deadline. That's always a great practice. You don't want to wait up until 11 o'clock of the night that the deadline is due. Their interpretation may show that you were late, for instance, and maybe they don't see the postmark on the envelope. Maybe they just see the application. We don't know. So again, give yourself plenty of time. Listing your important accomplishments first. We just talked about that. Showcasing your honors and awards. Again, it's okay to be prideful, but watch out for being boastful. Don't rule out smaller scholarships. There's a lot of scholarships out there for $500, $1,000, $2,000, something like that. Everybody likes to see the $10,000 to $15,000, maybe even the $25,000 scholarship. Those are all well and good. Chances are they're going to have a higher percentage of applicants for those. And yet you may be able to do a scholarship search and find 10 various different $1,000 to $2,000 scholarships that better match who you are. And if you happen to win a handful of those, you've gotten $4,000, $5,000, $6,000 hypothetically. If you put all of your hopes and dreams into applying for one $25,000 scholarship, and there's thousands of applicants, your odds of winning that scholarship may have gone down. So don't rule out smaller scholarships. So just lastly on this, start applying early and apply often. Scholarships are available all year round. There is no scholarship season. There are times when scholarships might be offered more, like over the summer and into the fall. There may be more scholarships that are available than maybe what you might see in the winter or the spring. But there are scholarships that are available year round, and there are available scholarships for all years that you're attending school. So lastly, you've won a scholarship. How will I get the scholarship money? This is okay for you to ask the scholarship donor or the foundation. Thank you very much for putting your trust in, winning the scholar or letting me win the scholarship, and picking me. I have one question. How will I receive the money? However you want to state it. That's an acceptable question to ask the scholarship donor or the foundation. Sometimes the scholarship money might be sent to you, but most often it's going to be sent to your college or university that you're attending. And so what you would want to do is validate that they have the right, excuse me, verify that they have the correct address for your college or university so that the money is sent properly. Maybe even getting somebody's attention, maybe somebody in financial aid or somebody in the business office at your college or university, and making sure that the scholarship review committee has a contact in order to send that out. That's perfectly acceptable and very responsible to do that. How will the scholarship affect any other financial aid? Sometimes, depending upon the various different other financial aid awards that you have won, sometimes financial aid offices may have to adjust your financial aid package to make room for a scholarship that you won. Scholarship or excuse me, financial aid offices are not allowed to go over what is called a cost of attendance, which is an estimated number that they have put together for all students on campus on what the average cost it would be in order to attend college or university. Federal law prohibits financial aid offices from awarding more aid over the cost of attendance. So if they reduce work study or self-help aid like loans when you win a scholarship, then that's still to your benefit because it's less money that you have to pay back or less money that you have to earn. Sometimes scholarships will reduce other gift aid options. It doesn't happen as much anymore. In the state of California, it shouldn't be happening at all. But if that does happen or so, or if the college or university says that they have to do that, you want to make sure that you've touched base with them so that you understand what the ramifications of winning that scholarship would be. But like I said, more often than not, they are either going to add it to your financial aid package, or if you are already at your maximum cost of attendance, they'll reduce the self-help options, the work study or the loans that you've had to take out. Lastly, what are the renewal requirements? Do I have to submit GPA? Do I have on a quarterly basis in order to make sure my next disbursement on the scholarship will be sent out? Is the scholarship renewable year after year? I simply have to send in either transcripts, or I have to write a thank you note, or I have to perform another smaller application, a renewal application, for instance, not the full-fledged scholarship application. There's certain requirements that you might have to do in order for this scholarship to be renewed. Make sure you understand what that is. And lastly, too, when you've won a scholarship, whether you've won a scholarship or whether you have not, it's always really great to send out thank yous, not only to the scholarship review committees, if they've sent you a letter back stating, we've read your application, unfortunately, you were not a winner this time around. It's always great to write a quick little thank you note for their consideration. But also, too, write a thank you note to any teachers or counselors that helped you in your scholarship application process. Write a thank you note to those that maybe wrote a letter of recommendation to you. And obviously, if you did win a scholarship, make sure that you thank the review committee and the donor as well. The review committee or the foundation and the donor, specific donor, may all be different entities. So it's always great to do a little bit of research, find out if they are, or if you can maybe send one universal thank you that will reach all parties involved. So we had a lot of information that we covered today. And I know that there's some more tips and tricks and good points to consider in regards to going to college. Certainly take a look at Provident Credit Union's Enrich website. You can see it here, providentcu.enrich.org. That's the website that you would like to, if you would like to learn more information about some of the topics we've covered today. There's a QR code to the right if you happen to have your camera on your mobile phone handy and you want to take a quick picture of that QR code, do so now and it'll link you directly to the Provident Credit Union Enrich website. But you certainly can get more follow-up information there. So with that, Lena, I'd like to go ahead and open it up to any questions that you might have.
All right, thank you, Jeff. Well, that concludes our webinar today. Thank you all for attending, and I hope this session was helpful to you. As a reminder, we will be sending you a follow-up email with today's presentation. Have a great day, everyone. Thank you.